Hello, everyone, and I hope everyone is doing excellent on this Friday afternoon. This is Stacy from the Author Boss Academy and Author Like a Boss, who, along with my cohorts, Ella and the awesome Carol, try to come to you every Friday live to bring you tips, tricks, how to's, and all of that fun stuff for your indie author journey. So, this month we have been talking about freshening up your author brand. And as you know, your brand is, well, it's pretty much all the things from everywhere from, let me mute my other device here. It's everything from your logos, your colors, your personality, the images you use, the tone. It's pretty much all of it. Hey, Carrie, how are you doing? Hi, Melissa. And so basically, that's what we're talking about this month is freshening up your author brand. And as the tech coach, I try to bring you ways of doing that is more on the tech side. So, the most important thing I can tell you about author branding um, is consistency. You have to remember to keep it consistent because your brand, you need your brand to be recognizable. I mean, that's the whole point in having your brand. So you need to keep it consistent across all of your platforms. And that means your website, your social media, your newsletter, your books, even your business cards, any banners that you have, anything that you do as far as any type of promotion. You want to keep your branding consistent across all of it. And from a tech side, that can seem a little bit overwhelming. Hello, beautiful. I see you. And that can be a little bit overwhelming from the tech side of things, is trying to keep it all consistent. So, how do you take that and translate it over into your tech, your website, your social media, newsletters, all those things? The best way I can tell you to go about doing this is to build your own personal author brand toolbox. Okay. And there's a few things that need to go into your toolbox. And the first one is going to seem um, a little bit duh, of course, but it's also one of the trickiest components that you'll run into as far as trying to build your author brand. And that is know thyself. You can't build an author brand if you don't know who you are as an author. Makes sense. So basically, you need to know yourself. And this is it's a lot easier than most people think. What genre do you write in? Do you write in multiple genres? Who is most likely to read your writing and why would they be reading it? Why would they be your fans? What things do you have in common with them? What makes you different? And before you go say, nah, I'm not different, spoiler alert, being you makes you different. None of us can write the same story because none of us are the same person. So you are different. There are things about you that make you unique from other writers in your same genre. Now, maybe you write fantasy, for example, but you're really bubbly and you have a great, upbeat personality, and that comes through in your writing. Use that type of stuff in your branding. Are you a romantic? Are you a comedian, a class clown? Are you kind of more dark and reserved? Those things that are part of like your author alter ego, those are a great place to start as far as figuring out your author brand, because your author brand is not just one book that you write, unless you ever plan on just writing one book. And I hope you don't. I hope you plan on writing many books. So figuring out your author alter ego is a great place to start with that, because those are the things that comprise your author brand. So we get into the more, I guess you could say, techie side of that, which is, yeah, the consistency is the hardest part, Carrie. It really is. It's tricky. It gets a little tricky. So to the next thing you're going to put in your author toolbox is like your colors. Okay, if you're more romantic, flirty, and write in that type of genre, then maybe you're going to use lighter colors, more pinks and reds or pastels. Even, if you're more serious or businesslike, you might go with blues or greens or grays. Fantasy, magic, darker genres, you are going to use darker hues generally with pops of color here and there that relate to your specific genre. Um, Now, That being said, the images are going to work basically the same way. You're going to choose your images based on those same criteria. Your personality, how your writing voice is. Do you tend to write more subdued, more darker things? Are you more bubbly, more comedic? And you're going to also choose. So you got your colors and your images that you're going to choose based on those criteria. But you're also going to choose your fonts based on that same criteria as well. And I'll show you a little bit about what I mean here. I've got a couple sites I'm going to take you to. But all of those things help because your brand is it's a very visual thing. When you think of, a major corporation that everybody knows, McDonald's, for example, the first thing you think of, well, if you're me, you think of their Shamrock Shakes. I love those things. But you think of the golden arches, of course, because that's their brand. It's immediately recognizable, and it's a visual thing. So that when you think about it like that, it becomes pretty obvious and apparent how you need to start incorporating that across all of your different platforms. So once you have your basic toolbox built, know thyself, your colors, your images, your fonts, at that point it becomes very easy to start actually putting those across your entire author brand, social media, websites, newsletters, all of it. Now, if you're not a graphic designer or don't have a graphic designer, there are tons of tools out there you can still use. One I recommend is Canva, canva.com. It's free to get started, and they have a lot of templates already in place with sizing and everything that you need for the different types of platforms. Now, what you'll do is, using the same images, colors, and fonts from your toolbox that you already picked out, you'll create things like a banner and other images. Yay! Hopefully made easy, yes. Hi, April. So you'll make a banner or other images for your website. You're going to make a banner for your newsletter, maybe header images for your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, other social medias. Your author bio photo. You can even incorporate your branding into that, which can be kind of a combination of like your headshot and then the images, colors, fonts, that sort of thing. And Canva is great because, and that's where, like I said, where I recommend most people start out if you're not familiar, you don't want to get into like Photoshop or GIMP or those type of programs, because it does have those templates in place to help get you started. Now, newsletters. I'm going to just start there because we should all be sending newsletters. I'm guilty of this as well. We should all be sending our newsletters to our list. Even if we haven't published yet, you need to start building that list. But for your newsletters, the important thing to remember here, when you're making your banner for your newsletter, is file size. You need to keep your header definitely under 1 megabyte, and preferably less than 100 kilobytes, because especially with email, you've got several factors working against you that file size can absolutely play a part of. How quickly the message downloads, how quickly the images actually show up once they open the email, and all of those things. So you want to keep your email loading fast. A lot of people don't open up newsletters, sadly. And, we have to give them a reason to open it up. But if it takes, 2 minutes, 2, 3, 4 minutes to open the email after they've actually opened the email for all the pictures and stuff to load in, people are going to click out of it. They're gone. They're not going to wait. So for your newsletters, make sure to keep your file sizes small. And on newsletters, because people are looking at those emails on a variety of devices, from desktops, laptops, all the way down to very small mobile phones, for your banner, you really want to stick to a width of about 600 pixels or less. So usually I stay in the range of about 575 to about 600 pixels. That works well across most devices, and you're not going to run into a lot of pixelation with that. It's not going to start getting fuzzy and blurry on you. But like I said, on that one, the big thing is your file size. On your websites, good rule of thumb on this one, because most devices and computers are, wider screens now, can handle higher resolutions. So a good rule of thumb is about 1920 on the width, 1920 pixels on the width. And that's for your website banners. Now, website logos, often those are going to be square, they're going to be much smaller, and they're also very, very dependent on your theme or the design that you're using on your site. Again, this is one of those areas where size matters, though. You want to keep those file sizes as small as possible, because keep in mind, every time somebody comes to your website, all of those images have to be served up Hi, Peggy. All of those images have to be served up from the server. So that's going to be dependent on their internet connection and a lot of other factors. So size matters here. Keep those file sizes as small as possible. Now, social media. This is where obviously the banners for all the different social media platforms are all different sizes. They run the gamut as far as sizes. And that's where Canva is really, really awesome. But there's always a little bit of a but in there. Social medias tend to, and I'm not going to point at anyone in particular because they're all kind of guilty of it, but social media platforms tend to change the sizing of the header graphics that they use. They'll give you a general size that they prefer, but most of them will actually, even though they give you that general size of what you should be shooting for, they still resize it after they're loading it onto your social media page. And I'm going to show you a really good example of that here in just a second. So that's something to keep in mind, because with Canva, even though they have the sizes that the social media companies are saying, hey, this is the size we like, your headers can still look a little funky. And like I said, I'm going to show you a good example of that. But for example, Facebook, the personal header, this is like on your personal profile page, is around 820 by 312. And with your profile picture being around 180 by 180. And even though those profile pictures are rounded now, that square 180 by 180 is a good size to shoot for. And that's what they actually tell you is their preferred size. Pages, groups, events, those sorts of pages, like your author page, the headers, they usually tell you to do about a 1920 by 1080. But this is one of those areas. Facebook actually scales those images down, so you can get a little bit of cutoff. If you've ever created a header and it looks great over on Canva or wherever you created it, and then you stick it on Facebook and half of it is cut off, that's why, because they're actually scaling those down a little bit. YouTube, if you have a YouTube channel for your author brand, those headers are usually about 2560 by 1440. But again, you can run into some scaling issues there. I've run into less scaling issues there than I have other places. Instagram, the good thing to remember about Instagram is most of their images are a 1-to-1 ratio. They're square. The only place I think that is not really the case is with their stories. Believe the stories are running, the images they use on the stories are running about 1080 by 1920. So it's more of a portrait type of image size there. And the Twitter header, which is the one I'm going to show you now, they prefer about, yeah, exactly. It makes it really difficult for us, trying to build pages to make them look right. And so, for example, like Twitter is, they tell you 1500 by 500. But again, I'm going to show you. So for example, like when you're talking about your website, if you're looking at like a 1920, that's going to scale very well and stretch the width of your website in most cases. But when you start getting into, for example, Twitter headers, okay, this Twitter header here was built on the, yeah, exactly. They're just keeping us on our toes, Peggy. They're trying to keep us sharp. So for example, this one here is on one of my Twitter pages, and you can see it's obviously cut off. And I keep forgetting you guys can't see me pointing at my screen. So let me use my mouse. You can see that obviously the books up here are cut off, and this is cut off down here at the bottom, even though I used the specs that they gave. And here's what it looks like when I designed it in Canva, because I actually did this in Canva. You can see it's perfect. There's no cutting off. It's all spaced out just right. But once I put it over on, actually uploaded it onto my Twitter page, yeah, it's kind of grainy looking. It's a little bit fuzzy, and it's cut off on the bottom and the top. So you can see the difference there. I mean, that's a huge difference in what they tell you they actually want and the templates that like Canva and other places have for their sizes and what actually shows up when you upload it. So when you run into that, in fact, because I need to fix it on mine, the easiest way to do it, I need to bring these down. So I'm just going to grab those things there and scooch them down. Obviously, my little logo, I'm going to need to scoot up a little bit. These here, I'm just going to scoot those up. And my little text box over here, I'm going to scoot that in and up. So basically the easiest way to work around that is just take all the stuff you have and squeeze it in a little bit. Hey, Carmen, and squeeze it in a little bit towards the center. And that should cover you. And then of course, when you download it, you have a couple different options, a PNG or a JPEG. JPEG is going to give you a smaller file size, but it's also going to give you a little bit less quality on the image quality. So that's why they suggest the PNG. And then you can just download that and save that wherever you're going to save it. And then we'll jump over here in a second and upload that. See, is that still going? There we go. Okay, and I'm just going to save that out to my desktop. I'm not going to give it a big name there. Okay, because I'm just going to update this. So of course you would just go in there and change your header photo. I'm going to upload a photo, and I'm just going to, whoops, no, I quit it. My computer's making funny noises at me. Okay, so I'm just going to do that one right there. And yeah, you can see it's better, but it's still cut off. So I'm going to have to shrink that up a little bit more and bring those in a little further. Yes, exactly. That is a good rule of thumb right there, Peggy. Now, the really complicated part is on some of them it works perfect, and you don't have to. And if you try to factor in too much border, it's going to look squished into the middle. So it's kind of a balancing act. But yes, if you go into it thinking, hey, I need to accommodate for a border, you're probably going to be a lot better off and have to go back and do a little bit less editing. So like right there, I'm going to have to go back and actually squeeze all of that in even further because it's still cut off on the bottom. So yeah, so Canva is a great tool, but keep in mind if you run into those issues where things are looking a little bit grainy, cut off on the bottom or top, that's why, because those sites are doing some scaling down. And the bizarre part and why you'll see some fuzziness in some of those images is after they scale it down, then they also have to stretch it to fit into the space. I know, it's a little weird. I can't explain that one. I do not get the thinking behind that one myself. But so basically that's your branding as far as how to incorporate that into the tech side in a nutshell. Start by creating your author brand toolbox. Get all of those things into your toolbox that you need. Once you have those, then putting them consistently across all of your platforms, even in print, banners, business cards, all of that is a lot easier because you already have it all sitting there in your toolbox ready for you. Now, the other thing that you can use that for too is when you start putting together your author media kits, which eventually we're all going to have to need those. So yeah, it does. It gets a little bit confusing after. The best thing to do is to kind of go by the specs, especially if you're using Canva, go by the specs that they give you. And then you just kind of got to test it. Like I did that one. It looked great on Canva, but I'm going to have to go back and just squish it in some. And it really is just a matter of kind of playing with things and resizing it. So it's kind of a testing it out and seeing what works for the different platforms. But those are the basic. And the good news is you can find those sizes at any point. You can Google them and say Facebook, page header size. Now, if you're going to Google that to look it up, if you're making your own and not using something like Canva, then you'll want to actually Google it, say, for example, Facebook page header size 2019. Put the current year on your search because those sizes have changed so many times over the years that you may be getting an old size. Your media kit, that is basically, think like press releases. So a media kit would be something that, a journalist or a blogger or somebody else who's wanting to promote you as an author or your book could just come grab a copy of your media kit from your website that has, your author bio photo, your author bio, press release type of statement, that sort of thing. So it's kind of like a little publicity kit that other people can use if they're promoting your stuff. So again, you want your branding consistent on that as well. So that's why you need to build your author brand toolkit or toolbox. you have everything in your toolbox, you're ready to go whenever you need to build anything new that needs to have consistent branding on it. And I also recommend, once a year, even twice a year, checking out what's in your toolbox there and seeing, hey, do I need to freshen this up? Is there anything I need to, improve on this? Should I change colors? Has my branding changed a little bit now that I'm, more comfortable with who I am as an author? That sort of thing. Exactly, Peggy. That's a great point right there too. That's also used for when you're doing speaking engagements, when you're doing signings, any of those sorts of things. So that is a great, great point. Nonsense, Gary. You're going to be out there. I saw your little guppy reference eating the sharks. You're going to be out there before you know it. And it's something that's super easy to build on your websites. It's just to have a little page that, is like a sub page of your about, so that people can grab a copy of your media kit if they want. And even if you have like ARC readers or a street team that promote stuff for you, they can use that as well. So it's not just for, the J.K. Rowlings and the Stephen Kings. It's for all of us little guys too. It's for all of us, not just the big guys. So I hope this helped with trying to, come up with your author brand, some tips and tricks for actually building your author brand toolbox, and how to start using it consistently across all of your platforms. And as always, if you have any questions about this video or anything author tech, drop it in the comments down below. And y'all have a great Friday and happy authoring. Bye.